Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much for joining me here. Hope you're having a great day. We're taking a look here at some altcoins as well as Bitcoin, setting a baseline and understanding the backend data too, specifically altcoin index. I get the question a lot about that, but also ETF inflow, or in this case, outflow here recently for Bitcoin, what it means for you. The main things we're going to cover, of course, outside of that is liquidation, XRP's pretty awesome little bullish type of pennant pattern. Same thing with a cup and handle here for SUI, as well as Solana breaking free from its local resistance range, and much more, of course, Ethereum, just no F's given, right? So the whole thing here is looking pretty solid, but we will start with a pennant pattern here with Bitcoin first, after analyzing these quick back-end informational data. So first things first, hit the like button before we get started. Really appreciate that. Folks are appreciating the new format. If you do, thank you so much again for always liking, commenting below. Let me know if you have any considerations or requests. Obviously, don't be a stranger on Twitter, Telegram, or Discord. So starting with the market overflow here, specifically ETF outflow. The last time we had this ETF outflow for Bitcoin, it was a fake out to the downside. Okay, so basically we sold off, we had a power of three manipulative wave, and the price took off from there. And at this point, it's a good chance that we're likely to see a continuation higher here. Now, this is good and bad for altcoins. I'll explain more so why here soon. But the key takeaway is that Ethereum is still high. In other words, we're getting a lot of money flowing into Ethereum, which is extremely important because that essentially incentivizes altcoins to do well. Okay. Now, when we take a look at fear and greed index, just to quickly note here, fear and greed index, anytime we're in the 60, 70, or 80% range, Bitcoin commonly goes sideways and then legs up again after ranging itself. We're right now definitively ranging between 116 and 120 for Bitcoin, and it's a little easier to see if I were to draw some lines on the chart here, but we are absolutely well within this range here, and we haven't broken this range yet. So 116 to 120 is that pretty obvious area where you just buy the dip, you sell the top. That's kind of where we're at right now for Bitcoin. Now, how that reflects with altcoins, there's more to be seen there. Let's talk about that in a minute. First things first, setting a tone here with altcoin season index. We're down yesterday from 55 to 52. And this is just a reflection of altcoin market dominance, as well as Bitcoin dominance and how well altcoins are performing versus Bitcoin. We're starting to see a lot more coins retesting or coming closer to their local highs, and we're more likely to see that continue moving forward here for some altcoins. So I'll explain more so why this is relevant, but just know that as the market capitalization comes away from altcoins, it's funneling back into Bitcoin, so we're kind of seeing that Bitcoin dominance increase because of that. Let's go ahead and start with that back-end data here, just kind of give you some perspective. Let's go ahead and look at the weekly here and just recognize that Bitcoin dominance is testing its ascending trend. Okay, it's also the SMA 50 there, if you're not curious, or if you're not familiar and you are curious. And the general consensus here is that with us plateauing here, in a perfect world, we see the price of altcoin and Bitcoin dominance go sideways, and then we kind of respond correctly with Bitcoin. In other words, altcoins go up with Bitcoin, versus vice versa. It's that common thing. We're likely in that position right now with a lot of altcoins kind of hanging out waiting for Bitcoin to make a move. It's common because money is not flowing away from alts going into Bitcoin, nor is it the other way around. It's just kind of this paused moment. Okay, so that's good for altcoins in a lot of ways, especially if they start to pull back a little bit with Bitcoin. But the key takeaway here is we want to see Bitcoin dominance going down to effectively give us the altcoin season / stability or price action going higher with the the inverse of Bitcoin, if you will. Okay, so that's ultimately what we're looking for. Keep in mind, this is the effect, not the cause. This doesn't cause the market to move. This is just a reflection of how the market is moving on the back end. Let's quickly note here too, with Bitcoin, just kind of set the tone here, because it's important. I teach this to my trading community and members as well. Basically, it's super important to understand how Bitcoin is doing. So if you're rolling your eyes right now thinking, why the hell is this guy covering Bitcoin? It's because it matters. It's basically the end all when it comes to price action. It calls the shots. Okay, so simply put, we have this bullish pennant breakout, and I use bunny ears too because I mentioned this earlier in my Bitcoin analysis. It's not necessarily a breakout because we haven't fully broken this range yet. While we're still above our ascending trend, that's good. This is slightly more bullish, being above our point of control at 118,000. We lose 118, I think we're more likely to go down to fill our CME gap and our fair value gaps. Either way you look at it, the important thing to recognize here is that Bitcoin is range bound between 116 to 120. Until that changes, we're going to remain in the same situation. This is just common, rinse and repeat price action for for Bitcoin. Okay, so now we got that foundation set. Let's talk a little bit about our altcoins here, specifically the altcoins that are highly requested. That's why I cover them. And what we're going to do here is, of course, recognize some backend data first. So let's start with the backend here for Ethereum and just kind of recognize where we're at. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the main thing here, open interest. This kind of identifies areas of support, and we can kind of see here if we kind of zoom in, 3650 is that lower area of support for Ethereum. However, we've retested that area a few times. There's more open interest above the price action at 3,800, reinforcing resistance there. So while you could argue we're in a range right now, the likelihood of breaking down then up is higher based on overextension, plus that open interest area continuously being retested. Furthermore, we can see liquidation delta is kind of at break even. It's been doing so for the last couple of days, last 12 to 24 hours, and it hasn't really, it's trying to define its range. So usually when you see that shift, the likelihood of trend reversal is higher. So we have a slightly larger inclination for further downside. But when you look at liquidation, it's spread out pretty significant. We may see leg up to 3,900 to 4,000 if Bitcoin can pull its head from its ass, right? Break that 120K range. So that's kind of what we're looking at there for ETH on the back end. Front end here, there's not too much to really note. That is a super significant outlier. We're still over 70 in the RSI, which is fantastic. Generally speaking, that's not a sign you want to try to short into, even though, yes, I know you can roll your eyes. We have a short open position for Ethereum. Our average position is 3,700. That's kind of where we're averaged at. So I personally feel we're going to pull back based on Bitcoin retracing, ETF outflow for Bitcoin, as well as Bitcoin dominance starting to stabilize on its ascending trend. Those are all things I'm leaning more towards with altcoins pulling back, and the reason why. Okay. All that said, not much here really telling us it's worthwhile to consider a short. You're better off waiting for a long that may or may not happen. Areas of interest for Ethereum are pretty straightforward. This is a kind of egregious, but we're looking at 3,150 to 3,100 is that heavy concentration of support. That seems like a very logical place, one of our local highs. The other local high is this $3,500 range. So just keep in mind, if I recall correctly, there is some liquidation in that area. Okay, so we could very well see 3,500 as kind of the next stop. If I'm not mistaken, our profit target is in the 3,550 range. So we'll see here how that works out. So that is Ethereum for you. Let's move on to Solana. This guy's a beast. Absolutely not pulling back like it should, which is perfectly fine. We're 8 days into our continuation pattern here for Solana, basically implying that we have another day or two's worth of continuation before pullback. If we do pull back, we have a strong support in the 175 to 180 range with our fair value gap there just above. Commonly, it's best to set profit targets for shorts. If you insist, I don't recommend it. Or basically take a long consideration in the low 180s. That's the concept here. Because once more, previous highs are commonly retested as new lows. All right. So we haven't seen that happen yet. That would be a logical pivot point for us for our ascending trend. Taking a look at the back end here for Solana. Well, this is pretty straightforward. This kind of reinforces some of the support that I discussed already. 178 to 185 roughly are those two areas of open interest, reinforcing a significant amount of support there. Liquidation long delta is at 5 billion, between 4 and 5 billion. This implies you don't want to try to short just yet. It's probably going to go up a little bit further before it does pull back. So don't recommend shorting at this point. It's not massively overextended. If we see this same amount in another couple days, then that would be a short signal consideration. But for right now, 192 to 190, that's the logical area of concentration for A, profit target for a short, or B, a good consideration for a long, just bouncing off that local high of 185. So 185 to 190 would be that rough estimate for a good consideration on a long. All depends on what kind of trader you are. Obviously, this may not matter if you're just scalping and day trading, or if you're a long-term swing trader. Maybe not super important, but the key takeaway is that those are some good dollar cost average targets. SUI, let's take a look here. This is one I've got my eyes set on. I sent out a trade alert yesterday saying I wanted to get in between 380 and 395 roughly. I think it was right in that range. While we are in that range right now with this bullish type of it's not a cup and handle per se. Well, it is in the big picture, but cup and handles have flag patterns within them. So if you're not familiar, they typically flag out. So I'm expecting or anticipating one more leg down based on the overall sentiment here and how altcoins are performing versus Bitcoin. That being said, a good consideration for entry would be 365 to 380 as a kind of an unrealistic estimate there. That may not happen, but that is an area we're looking at. Furthermore, too, when we come to the back end data, we want to recognize $4, $4.05, and and 410, heavy concentrations of resistance. So once more, I've talked previously about our short from $4 to 365. We hit that short there perfectly. Took a couple days for that to mature, but at this point, there's more shorts in the market. You don't want to try to take a long against that exactly just yet. Even though I know it sounds contradictory that I'm looking for a long, if we get that one more pullback, that would be absolutely what I'm looking for. When it comes to SUI's liquidation, we can see a heavy pocket between 360 and 365. So just be mindful we lose 380. 365 is the next target. Okay. All right, last but not least, XRP. This guy is on fire. We have a lower time frame, bullish type of pennant pattern. Keep in mind this can be invalidated at any minute, but the truth is we're creating higher lows and parallel highs. Generally speaking, that will eventually result in a squeeze. In other words, the price goes like this and pushes higher. That's usually what happens. So if Bitcoin can rally back to 119, 120, I think XRP is going to push through and punch through that 360 resistance here locally. Back-end data for XRP are as follows. We've got a lot of support at 343. I discussed that yesterday. And the overall sentiment here is that there's more support below the price than resistance above, therefore reinforcing continuation higher. Same thing with liquidation long delta. You may not be able to see it. It's at 1 billion, but that's still higher than it was roughly a week ago. So that's a good sign. Overall here in this state, or sense here, we can see 340 to 330 is that lower area of liquidation. We do see a manipulative wave down. We could see that level swept. But 365 to 380 would be the next consideration for long. And if we were to draw out some fibs here, of course, we can go ahead and kind of summarize that 360 to 380 range is kind of that next area of retracement if you were to extend out your fib levels. So I'll post all that stuff on the playout chart on our Twitter, Telegram, and Discord. Between now and then, I want to say thank you for just being an amazing part of my life. Make sure you check out BitUnix too, folks. We got some nice volume rewards this month. Next month is going to be a trading, basically a trading deposit reward bonus. So awesome stuff there from them. They've been a good exchange, no KYC or VPN required for them. So highly recommend them. Use my link to register if you want to be eligible for all future rewards and bonuses. Last but not least, join us on Twitter, Telegram, and Discord. We'll look forward to seeing the next one. Thanks again so much. We'll see you soon. Take care.